So Zero was really successful. People really
Mhm.
liked it. It took us a little while because, like I say, we build it ourselves.
Yeah.
That's a whole extra kind of complexity that we
Yeah.
haven't been exposed to before.
Do you know what you used to design the PCB? I've been doing research.
It was Allegro, Cadence.
Allegro.
So Cadence tools.
I've never
So
heard of that.
we're a Cadence shop. For free stuff, we quite like KiCad.
Mm-hmm.
We paid a little money. We've a lot of the development's done out of CERN.
Oh
in
yeah,
Switzerland,
right, yeah.
Right? And we paid a little money for them to do differential pair routing to add good differential pair support.
Cool.
Manage Impedance differential pair support.
Ah.
It's really good.
That's awesome.
So that's our recommendation for free.
Yeah.
For free CAD tools, we like KiCad, but for paid for, we like the Cadence tools.
Yeah, definitely for like the pro open source people, KiCad.
Yeah, KiCad. There you are. So yeah, and that was pretty successful.
Mm-hmm.
And we added the camera connector. That was obviously we had this V1.3.
Oh, I didn't realize that wasn't a.
No, the ones that are on the magazine don't have. So the first 100,000 we made, the ones
Mm-hmm.
in the magazine, and the first batch we sold didn't have camera connectors.
It had the HDMI though, right?
It had the HDMI,
Yeah.
but just not that camera. And it was just dumb luck that camera connector. That's actually the camera connector it's not the camera connector we use on the Pi. It's a finer pitch camera connector than the Pi.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the one we use on the compute module dev kit.
Oh,
and it was
okay.
just dumb luck that it just fits onto the edge the edge of the board. We were like got one desoldered one from the compute module dev kit. And we're like, yeah, that fits, doesn't it? That's going to be okay. So we put that out in April. We kind of got to a point where they were then in stock. So it was that thing where you kind of bump in and out of stock.
So then the Zero W came out earlier this year.
Yeah. So then but everyone we kept seeing all these people who'd been building products with it. That were projects with it, where they've got a Wi-Fi dongle hanging off that little. You've got a single micro USB. And they've got like a micro USB to USB adapter and a Wi-Fi dongle.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we know how to do after we done because we launched Zero before Pi 3. So we didn't have a Wi-Fi product.
Interesting.
We didn't know how to do Wi-Fi.
Right.
We
Yeah.
did Zero, right? But now we know how to do Wi-Fi. We're like, why don't we just take the Wi-Fi chip from Pi 3 and put it on?
Yeah.
And put it
Cool.
on Zero, and that's what Zero was.
Yeah, you had mentioned before that like until recently the cost sort of differential to put wireless technology on something this small was too high, but then just like recently it's become much more feasible.
Yeah, I think one of the big things that's happened, our engineering team has got bigger. So we've got a guy called Roger Thornton who joined us about 18 months ago, and he led the kind of the Pi 3 it's the conformance testing. It's not so much the engineering, it's then getting the FCC.
Yeah.
And all of, there's a whole world of different. So if you get FCC and CE, that gets you EU. That gets you two big markets, but then there's a very long tail of, you start with Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, and then you get South Korea, and India, and China, and Japan, and there's this very long tail of conformance. So we now, we do a lot of work with UL, Underwriters Labs. We're now quite good at doing conformance. And so while Pi 3 was a bit of a slog, Zero W is pretty smooth. There's a lot of legal stuff. There's obviously the other thing with Zero Wireless is Zero is a single-sided board. One of the cost optimizations on Zero is single-sided. So we couldn't just use the same wireless layout that we used from Pi 3. We had to make a single-sided version.
Right, and that means that you could, like in theory, just attach it to another.
Yeah, you can just what comes through. I think some of the HDMI, so the HDMI and USB connectors have they are surface mount, but they have these little feet which intrude slightly into the PCB. We've used in the past some HDMI that had legs that came through.
Yeah, and that makes sense for like structural.
And there's a slight non-planarity of the bottom. You do have some places where.
But I remember it being pretty flat.
Yeah, by and large, you can just any kind of maybe if it was double-sided tape, which is very thin, you might struggle, but. Any kind of two-sided.
But like foam tape, like you would need to,
just stick it on there.
Cool.
And that was fun.
Oh my god, Raspberry Pi Throwies.
Then the other one is the antenna.
Oh yeah.
So we've gone from a chip antenna to a PCB antenna. And the PCB antenna on Zero is really cool. So there's a company called ProAnt. In fact, if you turn the Zero Wireless over on the back, it says contains antenna technology license from ProAnt AB. Yeah, so the Pi 3 has the little sort of ceramic thing which has a little coil inside it.
And instead it's just like...
It's just a drawing on the PC. Well, that's the thing that most... I should go and get one.
I should have brought mine.
Yeah,
I feel like an idiot.
I'll go and get one in a little bit. Most of the... most PCB antennas, like you say, are like a little wiggle.
Yeah.
So if you look at a lot of single board computers that have Wi-Fi, they'll have a little wiggle. The antenna on 0W is kind of like a trapezoid. It's a kind of like it almost looks like if you think of the circuit diagram for a speaker with like a kind of a cone in a box. It's like that. It's a gap in the ground. So you have the ground plane, and then it's just kind of chiseled into the ground plane, this kind of shape, and you push radio in the side. It's got a couple of caps and a shunt, and then you push radio in down this kind of little curved track. And radio happens. You just push RF energy into it, and it resonates or something. I don't even know how it works.
That's crazy.
But it's cool. We licensed it from these guys in Sweden. It's old, I think, Ericsson people maybe. But yeah, we licensed it from them. They came in. It was just one of those kind of spec meetings where someone's in town, and we had a mutual friend who said, "Hey, you should meet with these antenna guys." I'm like, "I already know about antennas." And then they came in, and they were just so impressive. And within a week, they had a design for us that we were able to put on the product. And it's really nice. It's not very directional. It just spews radio in all directions, which is nice, and the polarization is nice. And it's so efficient. We actually have to turn down. There's an amplifier built into the Wi-Fi chip. We actually have to turn it down versus the Pi 3 setting. So the 0W has a lower setting for the analog amp.
So it would be like in compliance?
Yes. Yeah. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it seems to give really good range. So we're really happy with that. I suspect future Raspberry Pi, I can't imagine us ever going back to using chip antennas now.
Cool.
Really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's good. So yeah, I was talking about the antenna.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so it's this little thing down here. Is the antenna? It looks like no wireless antenna you've ever. Antenna you've ever seen. So radio comes in down this little curvy track here, and then it looks like a loudspeaker, and just radio comes out of it. So that's kind of fun.
It's going in that direction, but kind of all directions.
Kind of all directions. It's very isotropic, which is kind of fun. And what else have we got? Well, so that's the wireless. Stuff there, which looks quite familiar from the Pi 3. You see, there's nothing on the other side, so it's fairly. It's actually, I think, completely smooth now. Yeah, we used to have we had so many connectors that had feet that had slightly longer teeth that came through there, but that's now completely smooth, so you really can stick that onto something.
And I have set one of these guys up. It seems a little bit slower than the regular one, but that's obviously because it's a smaller computer.
Yeah, that's it. And this is it's the same chipset we use on the Pi on the Raspberry Pi 1. And it's but clocked a bit faster. So Pi 1 is clocked at 700 megahertz. This is 1 gigahertz.
Cool.
But yeah, it was just lovely to be able to. I mean, both these products. I really love Raspberry Pi Zero. I mean, the big products are kind of fun, but it was nice to have a chance to go back and kind of challenge ourselves a bit, because I think it's easy to get comfortable. And think, wow, we're making all these $35 computers, they're great. And obviously, Pi 3 is something like 10 times as powerful as this.
Yeah.
And only three and a half times the cost. But it's kind of fun to go back and challenge yourself and say, could we actually go and do it again?
And for some people, that that 3.5 times difference in cost is a huge difference. When you now have this sort of race to the bottom of ESPs and stuff like that, and it's guess what? You can get an entire computer.
There's the latte computer. Is a
latte.
The latte computer. It's like, I'm not going to have a latte today. I'm going to buy a 1 gigahertz Linux box with half a gigabyte of RAM. And that's kind of
that's great.
It's kind of fun.
So now that you've got all this wireless technology on your newer boards, you're starting to, I'm imagining you have to start thinking more about security because it's built in as opposed to people having to intentionally go out and get Wi-Fi dongles and stuff. So in the past, I think you updated the Pixel OS with some new security fixes and things like that.
And there's always a trade-off, right, between ease of use and security. So historically, Raspberry Pis, you they've had a user, Pi, with a password Raspberry, and they've turned on with SSH on by default.
Yeah.
Right? And that makes a lot of sense. If you've got very technically sophisticated, because our user base is very technically sophisticated, right? So if you've got very technically sophisticated users, that's really useful if you want to use it headless. You can just plug it into the LAN, find out what IP address has been assigned by your DHCP server, and then you can just SSH into it. And hopefully, the first thing you do when you hopefully you don't plug it straight into the public internet.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you plug it into somewhere that you have some security control over, and hopefully, the first thing you do is either disable SSH if that's something you don't want, or you change the password. But what we discovered was lots of people were putting these things down. And it becomes, you have that nightmare scenario. We've sold a lot of Raspberry Pis now. A Raspberry Pi botnet would have a lot of bandwidth, right?
Yeah.
So it was a hard decision because you're going to annoy a lot of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think November of last year we finally snapped and turned off SSH by default. And actually, there were some people complaining, but I think the balance of people said, okay, even the people who were inconvenienced said, okay, you've inconvenienced me. And we provide easy ways for people to turn it back on just by putting a file in the boot partition. But even the people who are inconvenienced, probably 90% of them said, okay, you've inconvenienced me, but I know why.
Yeah. I think that's the thing is, like, you're always going to have this, as you say, like, fight between convenience and security.
And you just got to grow up. At some point, you've got to grow up. As an organization, we had to kind of grow up. And you start having responsibilities. You sell enough of something, you put enough of something in the wild, and then if that stuff got subverted and became part of a botnet, you've actually got to you've got to own that. You've got to take responsibility.
I'm kind of feeling that as we, are a tutorial site and people are, we're trying to help people level up just from the very beginning, from scratch, on these things, and we're going to be doing a series of Raspberry Pi tutorials somewhat soon. Mainly on integrating with different types of Alexa and Particle and whatnot. But
some of the Alexa stuff's really wonderful. I saw a wonderful some of the perils of Alexa. I saw a thing about a girl who'd ordered a doll's house. So there were some real challenges. So we started to build these really ubiquitous devices. If you build the internet of fail, you've got to be really, really careful.
Yeah. And same thing with encouraging people to build home automation systems, and not encouraging them and not explicitly telling them that you should put security on it, because everyone's full of delight. Everyone's this is so exciting.
I can open my garage door and then you discover that you've built a system where someone can walk up and shout into your house, unlock the door. And it's interesting, and it's one of the reasons why things like it's one of the reasons why we quite like Alexa actually. Is that it's if you have it's one of the reasons platforms, things like either kind of quite high-level platforms like Alexa or lower-level platforms, things like Particle, are important, is because they discourage you. If they provide compelling services to developers, and by providing you with a compelling service, they discourage you from rolling your own. Roll your own. And my inclination is always to roll your own. My inclination is always just start with an empty text file and start writing Python until I'm done. And the problem, of course, is that people always swear blind that they won't scale their MVP. I'll build this MVP and I'll just get comfortable with it, and then I'll go back to and I'll rebuild it from scratch with security in it. And no one ever does that, right?
No.
The whole world is full of things that have grown.
Plus, you see security as kind of a luxury, I think, instead of being
kind of non-functional. I come from the chip industry, right? And kind of power consumption is the equivalent thing,
right?
Where if your chip comes back and it doesn't do a thing it's supposed to do, that's really bad. If it comes back and it consumes a little bit more power, that doesn't feel as bad for an engineer, right? And so one of the things you have to do when you're designing chips is constantly have a focus on power because it's non-functional, right? It doesn't. It doesn't matter right until it does, until I think the chip gets too hot. So it's similar like that with security.
It's not a big deal for so long until someone decides that they want to have a go at this, and then it becomes like, oh my god.
Well, it's the idea that we took a network that was designed to be resilient to nuclear attack, and we made it vulnerable to toasters, right? And it's terrifying, right? So it's one of the reasons why we like these kind of these the middleware guys, the platform guys have actually got a really good value proposition, right? That you can concentrate as long as you trust them to build good security solutions, then everyone can benefit from that. Of course, if they build bad security solutions, everyone gets punished. But by and large, I mean, we like what those guys are doing. There's now a soft particle for Pi.
Yeah.
Which is really
cool. I haven't tried it yet, but that's what's going to be one of the tutorials.
We were working away on Zero Wireless, and we could see Particle working on soft particle, and we're like, oh, this is going to be great. We gave them some warning, but we could just see, there was a period of time where they were working on soft particle, and we were saying, yeah, this is really good, and we weren't really able to say why it was such a good thing, and it's just come together with Zero Wireless.
Just like sitting there going,
well done, guys. Keep doing that.
Cool, yeah.
The security thing is it's an interesting thing. It's something that's going to get more. It's going to get more important for us, and it's something where we see selling lots of Raspberry Pis has obviously been great because it funds developing more Raspberry Pis and it funds the charitable work that we do. But it's also starting to feel a bit like, particularly as people design Raspberry Pi into things, it starts to feel like a threat, right? It starts to feel like a responsibility.
With great saturation
comes
great
opportunity to build the botnet of things. Right? So yeah, it's been fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
No, thank you. Cool.
And thank you all for watching.
Manifesto. There we are.